Thank you, Harry, for giving up your time in what has been a busy year to come and chat to Chad and I for 40 minutes to share all of your knowledge and the journey you've been on and the lessons you've learned and help other people who are on the same path as you guys, really. So if I hand over to Chad, he can ask the first question and we get you introduced and we can get cracking.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on, Harry. It's a real pleasure to have you on our podcast. I think what I always like to open with is just get a sense of what is the company, what's the vision, what is it that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, firstly, thank you so much for having me on today. Really excited to be chatting to you both. So yeah, looking forward to sharing some hopefully worldly wisdom. So yeah, what do I do? What do we do? So I run Hio. Well, actually, as this goes out, we'll have probably rebranded to become Unfold, which is going to be our new name. Slightly easier to pronounce, as you might have noticed, /spell. And we are a digital product agency. So we focus on building web applications, websites, and digital platforms, primarily for startups and scale-ups, and anyone kind of as a high growth company we would class it as. Our particular focus, though, is really on user-centered design or user experience design. This is really all about creating products which are seamless, really easy to use. The actual users absolutely love using them, and creating experiences. And the reason we've focused on that so much over the time that we've been going is that it just consistently drives much better business outcomes. If you can get the people who are actually interacting with your products to find it intuitive and easy to use, we've seen that translate massively into real world tangible impact in terms of kind of business KPIs and metrics. So we do a whole array of stuff. So I mean, just this year we've launched an e-commerce business called Muddy Trowel, which is a kind of gardening delivered proposition, which, as you can imagine, this year has been really very popular. So that launched in lockdown. But we've done that right through to an automated booking platform for a self-storage company, a national chain of self-storage locations. So the work varies massively, which is actually, to be honest, why I love it so much. But it's really focused around those two things. So creating amazing experiences and building the tech to actually facilitate those experiences and boost other people's businesses.
Makes sense. And I suppose one of the questions I always like to ask, and I always find really interesting, is, I guess, what gave you that idea? Was it kind of a bit of a eureka moment, or was it something that's kind of took time and sort of you always knew it was something you wanted to do, but were just waiting for that right opportunity to go, yeah, let's make it happen? Yeah,
great question. So in all honesty, I started business by accident. Almost without realizing. So to give you a kind of potted history then, I guess, of where I've come from. So I started the business sort of at the tail end of university. So before I graduated, I studied business in Bath, which was a fantastic course because it was really kind of a focus on taking both practical experience and academic experience. So by the time I graduated, I'd already done a year working for Accenture as a management consultant, and I'd done 2 6-month placements working in startups in both Bristol and London. So a really kind of like broad range of experiences. But it was particularly the second placement I did here in Bristol with a company called Limber. And I was a product manager there. So I was their first hire, but I was doing product, and I absolutely fell in love with that intersection between design, business, users, and just everything that it encompassed. So I kind of, alongside this, while I was at uni, I was doing a lot of freelancing. So that was kind of ticking along nicely and just keeping me out of trouble. And then and like you say, actually, I always knew I wanted to start my own business. So I knew I wanted to be involved in startups because I'd started off in this massive corporate company and slowly went to Love Space, which is a sort of 30-person startup, Limbo, which was 3. And I was like, this is obviously trending in a particular direction. But I couldn't work out what I wanted to do. Couldn't come up with the idea, or I didn't really have the kind of knowledge or an industry knowledge to be like, there's a problem that I can go and solve. All the meantime, I'm really enjoying all this freelancing work and all the different aspects that go along with that. And then I happened to be speaking to Chris Edwards from Good 60. Because Limbo were based in Set Squared at the time. So I was speaking to a lot of amazing companies that have gone on to be very successful. So Gap Square as well were all kind of starting at that time. And anyway, Chris used to run an agency. And I sort of floated this idea. I was like, maybe I could try doing an agency like that. That looks like fun. It would really suit my skill set. And I think I'd really enjoy it. Anyway, I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks later, I get a call out of the blue, and Chris goes, "I've got you a client." And I was like, "That's great. I'm still at uni." And he was like, "Well, you're starting now." And I was like, "Well, I hadn't really planned it like that." So kind of long story short, I sort of had to fake it till I make it style through my final semester at uni whilst pretending to run a company and also finishing my exams. And I mean, originally the plan had been to take the summer off and then maybe start in September. It just never happened. That was coming up to 3 years ago, and I've just been busy ever since, which is obviously a great problem to have. But yeah, that's why it was kind of an accident. There was never a day I sat down and was like, this is the plan. But equally, I'm so glad that it's kind of worked out in the way that it did.
No. So you got a lot to thank Chris for then, for throwing you over that first bone again. Right, get on with it, Harry.
100%.
So where are you at today then? If you were to sort of say 3 years in, sort of headcount, size of business, what does that look like?
Yep. So we are 4 people now. Well, we might be 5 by the time this airs, actually. But yeah, we've had really good growth, particularly over the last 18 months or so. So the first year was pretty much still me and just some freelancers. But now the last 2 years have been amazing in terms of, I feel like we're a bit more of an established business. Always hesitant to say that when you're only 3 years in, obviously, but it's not as scary as it was in the first year where you don't know, kind of what's coming next. We've got a really great group of clients that we work with now. And that for me has just made the world of difference. It's I think that's another reason I kind of wanted to set up my own business, was because you get to define what's important to you and what the priorities are. So, picking the right clients to work with and making that a really nice atmosphere and a really nice culture to work in has been great. And yeah, so I mean, plans for 2021 is to continue growing. Obviously, it's been a hugely challenging year for a number of industries, but digital and tech is obviously kind of in some areas at least is going from strength to strength because we're all stuck at home. So it's been positive in terms of a business year for us, and hoping to kind of continue on with that next year. Fingers crossed.
So I just want to track back a bit. I'm intrigued.
Sure.
Was it never in the DNA then, in terms of going out and getting the job? I mean, you work with Accenture, fantastic consultancy like that. Was there never a point when you were at university thinking, I want that job, I want that progression in a corporate organization? Or where does that come from? Is it just surrounding yourself, like you mentioned, people that were around you? But there are, like Carl and I talk to a lot of people where there's this kind of, and I know you fell into it slightly accidentally, but I do get that. But I also argue the fact that there must have been a moment where you thought, I think I'm actually going to do this now, and you jump and you do make that jump. But the people that we talk to, we find that it is, there's never any point where you're going, do you know what, I like the idea of a startup and doing my own thing, but really I want to have a good solid career with a business. Was that never in question, or is it through your career just gone, through your early stages of university, going, as soon as I'm at uni, I'm starting up? That's how I feel.
I definitely knew from a really young age that I wanted to run my own business. Excuse me. I think it sort of stems from the fact that actually at university, I was part of Young Enterprise, which was an amazing scheme initiative where essentially you're at school and you get told to start a business. And we wrote a book called Rail Trails, and we managed to get it into Waterstones. I mean, only the local branches, but it was just such an amazing experience to go from like a group of kids and then like that's us with a published book kind of selling into a retailer. And I always thought that was my, like, oh, you've got to do your extracurriculars. It's going to be great for my UCAS, or it's going to get me impressed. Like it's going to impress people like Accenture, and then I'm going to go and work for them. So that was the plan. And then I got to Accenture, and I mean, say what you will about consulting, but it really did feel like, I just remember the projects used to be like, client had problem X, then we had to go and look it up in the big Accenture book of solutions. And then we had to deliver that back to the client. And it just wasn't, I don't know, I was just a very small cog in a very big machine. And I wanted something that was going to be like, here's the impact, like this is exciting. Like I want to see tangible results from what I'm doing. And I want to see that in a shorter time frame than I'm going to be able to achieve here. Which is where I then started exploring the startups, because I wanted to experience what that was like so that I could do it for myself. I realized that actually the experience I had at the beginning with Rail Trails was what I wanted to replicate, and that's what I wanted to enjoy. And so it kind of came full circle. And that's where it really stemmed from. So I knew I wanted to do it. So when the opportunity, or the accident, if you like, from Chris handing me a client kind of, became apparent, that was like, oh, this is perfect. Like I'm absolutely going to go for this. So it was an accident that I got the client, but definitely something that I was very driven to do once I had that opportunity.
Makes sense. And I suppose one of the mad stats that fly around is, I think it was sort of 20% of businesses fail in their first year. Then out of that 80% left, 60% of those fail sort of by year 3. So to kind of get to the point where you've got to, obviously you've done really well, you've grown headcount. But I suppose what a lot of people are probably really keen to hear, maybe you able to talk us through some of those growing pains and how you've kind of matured as a business to where you are today.
Yeah, growing pains. To be honest, it's been reasonably okay. I can't say that we've had like a hugely rocky ride of things. Obviously, there are difficulties. I think, especially when I haven't had much experience in the workplace, to go out and start something is a little bit different, I think. But it's sometimes an advantage because you kind of don't know what you're doing, and that can be good. You can do stuff differently, and you just didn't know any different. I think, for me personally, a lot of it in the early stages was just being confident enough in myself to be able to actually go out and back myself to deliver what I was trying to do. And I always felt like my age and the fact that I just come out of uni was a really big detractor. So I used to try and hide that because you don't want to buy, not that we sell consultancy, but it's part of the service in terms of like the expertise around what we're delivering. And I was very nervous about that. So it's over the last 3 years, and certainly once we've really kind of hit our stride, I felt like that was really important to take hold of and do that. I think also managing a team of people who are all older than you is a bit odd. But we've been really lucky to have some really amazing people work with us. And again, it comes back to the fact that that's another reason I wanted to run the business, is so that we can pick who we work with and make it a really nice place to work. But equally, you also, I think certainly in the early days as well, when you're using freelancers and maybe not knowing what skills you needed and not being able to hire the right people meant that we did end up in a few sticky situations where you haven't been able to deliver what you were hoping you were going to. So that was difficult, but equally, we all make mistakes, and that's where a lot of the learning comes from as well. I mean, Google went down yesterday, didn't it? So if it can happen to them,
make a mistake, anyone can. That's looking at it. I like that.
I always like to have that in my back pocket just in case.
Yeah, it's a great trump card to put at, isn't it? I think I might steal that one as well, just in case. And then I suppose a slightly recruitment related question, which I always try to avoid, but I think it'd be interesting. So casting your mind back, hire 1 versus, by the sounds of it, you're making hire 5. What have you learned? What have you changed over that process? Because I imagine when you hired the first person, the culture, the values, the fit you were looking for has probably changed and evolved a lot versus to the person you got at hire 5 now. So how do you built that, define that, and how you kind of learn, I suppose, from those different hires you've made along the journey?
Do you know, hiring is so difficult. You spend what seems like a very, very short amount of time trying to understand how good someone is going to fit into your business. And it's very much a dating process, isn't it? In the sense that it's not about whether we think they're great, but they also want to fit in with us as well. And I think that's really important. So I think as we've evolved our hiring process, it's been more about trying to make sure that the person that you're interviewing is really aware of the fact that this is about, is this going to work for both of us, not just you're on trial here. And the more we've done that, the better it's been, just because people feel really comfortable in the hiring environment. And yeah, equally kind of, we've just been, obviously as part of this rebrand, looking at our values as well. And that is just going to be massively important for how we hire going forward as well. Because we've now got more of a framework to actually go, who are we and what do we do, rather than it just being the culture that exists. I think with our first hire, Tom, completely lucked out. He's amazing, and he helped transform that business, as any number 1 hire does if you're going to be successful. But obviously, as you grow, you need to understand what that dynamic actually is, and then be able to slot more people into that family. So yeah, looking at values and being able to get people to understand what those are, so that they can match themselves and sort of self-select themselves into the job, if they're keen to join the madness that is our studio.
What sort of person fits well with the organisation then? What have you? I mean, that's a definition as you go, right? It's because we're in that. Carl and I are in that sort of startup mode. We've been going for a couple of years now, but I think we've defined the type of person that works well in our organisation. What have you learned on that journey? I mean, obviously you lucked out with Tom. That's really good, but I guess you've got a definition now that you think, you know what, I kind of know what kind of person would work well here.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of values that really stand out for me. One of them is kind of this idea of yes before no. So something that comes out, and maybe a bit from what I've talked about in terms of where the business has come from, it's that we're happy taking on something that we don't necessarily know how to do yet. Huge believers in the fact that if you've got the right people and the right tools, you can achieve anything. But you have to be able to buy into that mindset of, we can do this, we just need to figure it out. So it's not going to be necessarily straightforward from the beginning. So you have to be comfortable with a bit of uncertainty and a bit of, uncertainty. But I guess for some people that's scary, and for some people that's opportunity. And that's the kind of people I think that we really gel with, people who are willing to take a chance. And then equally, just on a more human side, someone will go for a beer with. I think the beer test is hugely important for recruitment. We do the same for clients. Wouldn't work with anyone we won't go to the pub with. It's a very kind of hard and fast rule, which has not seen us go wrong yet. So yeah, you need to be, and not to say that you have to be outgoing or extroverted. We're not just gonna, bias it by that, but it should be someone who's going to fit in and feel like, I say family because it really is. It's a group of friends who are doing stuff together, and it's a real team effort. And that's one of the most rewarding things I think I've seen about building a team, is that I can have a bad day and be honest with the team about that, and someone will step up and go, "It's fine, I've got this. Like I can handle this today." And it swings and roundabouts. But yeah, someone who's going to mold into that culture is just fantastic for us.
I think that's the thing Chad and I've learned over the years, and Chad more so than me than recruitment. Cultural fit is the most important thing. Technical skills you can teach, you can't change the fit of someone into an organisation. And just rewinding back, Harry, to a couple of conversations ago, you were talking about sort of that imposter syndrome and sort of self, and am I really good enough to do this? Can I go and sit in front of a client? I've never really had any commercial experience. And I think probably that's something everybody goes through if you'd like, you're setting up a business for the first time, because you kind of go, can I really do this? Or has somebody else where I've worked before, have they been holding my hand more so than I've realised? So I think I'd be just really intrigued to know how you've dealt with that, how you probably still deal with it. Because I'm sure there's lots of people that are, again, at the start of their journey having those same thoughts.
Yeah, it's a great question, isn't it? I think, yeah, there's a few different things. Where would I start? You just have to take it one step at a time and build up to things. So I'm really very conscious of never over-promising and communicating well with the client, because then you can never really get yourself too unstuck. Even if you don't know what you're doing, it's better to put your hands up and be like, I don't really know what I'm doing. But I think the main thing I've learned is not to take it all personally. So client number one, get a bit of bad feedback. Oh my God, end of days. This is, God, I'm not good enough. But it's not. That's just part of collaborating and working with people. You're not going to get it right first time. So I would definitely try to take things a lot less personally. And that's very hard, because we are all as a team, and from the culture we've just described, very invested in the work and very invested in the success of the people we're working with. So we have to really constantly balance that between, it's okay, this is, we make mistakes and that's okay, and we're fine with that. And that helps you get over that imposter syndrome, understanding that everyone's making mistakes and everyone is just trying their best. And really, if you're trying your best, then that's all we can do. So try not to worry so much about the rest. The second thing is to just surround yourself with awesome people. So both in the business, but equally peers and mentors, to realize that you're not the only one making the same mistakes, and not the only one feeling the same way. And I found that hugely useful. So whenever I've run into something which is, God, how does this work? Like, how do agencies price X piece of work? If I can speak to someone who's run an agency before, a simple 15-20 minute conversation can alleviate, weeks of worry over, am I doing this right? So knowing who to reach out to and who to speak to kind of help you through those moments is massive. And I think that is one of the things that Bristol is so amazing for, is that everyone is incredibly generous with their time. Even people who you technically count as our competitors, more than happy to help. And that's it's just a lovely place to work when you've got that kind of support from everyone in the community. I think it's really what makes Bristol stand out.
The answer to my questions then. My next question was why Bristol? I mean, was that a conscious decision? I mean, obviously the collaboration, because we talked to a lot of founders and we actually realized it's actually quite a tight-knit ecosystem really of people that are prepared to help other people. So we get that. But before that, was it a conscious effort to say, do you know what, I want to remain in Bristol? Did you get that feel? Has there never been a draw to go to London or anything like that?
Yeah. So how did we end up in Bristol? So obviously I went to uni in Bath. I'm from Plymouth, so I'm very like southwest centric. And I'd done a stint in London, or a couple of stints in London for Accenture, etc. So I did sort of think about Bath, Bristol, and London as opportunities. Obviously, a lot of my friends went to London straight after uni, grad roles, they're all there. I think I just did the maths on London. I would have been broke almost. I think it was about 3 months runway I had if I had gone to London and that was not an office at all. That was just me renting a place. It was just never going to happen. And I didn't want it. I don't like the lifestyle in London so much. It doesn't really suit me. I like, grew up in the countryside and like green space and just friendly and not so busy. I always feel a bit on edge in London. There's just a bit much. So then it came down to kind of Bath and Bristol, and again, sort of an accident, but I started working with Tomello, great company. But this is when it was just me, and one of their conditions for working with me was that I was in the office. The only problem with this, of course, is that I was living in Plymouth at the time because I was between uni and whatever I was going to do next, seeing if this business was actually going to work. So I ended up in this sort of bizarre situation where I was getting a train from Plymouth on a Monday morning, sleeping on a sofa for 2 nights, basically pretending that I lived in Bristol, and then enjoyed it so much. And I was like, yeah, this commute is really killing me. So time to find a place and settle into
life of a startup tech person, living on a sofa for a couple of nights a week.
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the things I always like to ask, and your first name, I know you're rebranding, but I guess where did the first name come from? Because it's quite unique. And I guess then you answer the same question, but rebranding a business is 3 years old. You kind of get that's a fairly big, bold step to do, because I guess you've spent 3 years really building up what it is, and people recognize it now and know who it is. And I think for me, I'm always looking at things at my business, kind of go, I can change that. That looks cool. And I know kind of like, rein yourself in, Carl. Just get on with what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. Otherwise, I'm Chad's chuckling. I'd spend all day doing anything but recruitment and changing everything I could. But I suppose, how have you gone through that journey and why, I suppose? But I'm fascinated with the first name you've got and where that came from.
Yeah, Hyo. So Hyo actually was a place in Iceland, or a short and abbreviated version of it. And it was just a place that I saw the Northern Lights, where I was with my family, and it was just an amazing moment. And I thought, I need a name for a company. That'll do. Stick it on. I mean, I was working out my bedroom. I didn't have any clients, so it never got stress tested as like, should I actually, like, I didn't think the business was going to go anywhere, so it didn't seem really kind of top of my priorities to work out what it should be called. So it kind of just it was almost a placeholder that then just stuck.
Just on that note, Harry, sorry to interject, the amount of founders that we've spoke to that Carl and I have asked that question, thinking that some sort of mathematical equation or some epiphany moment, some eureka moment has happened, and that almost 99% of them say, I don't know, just the domain was free. I just chose it. It's quite interesting on that.
Yeah. So that is exactly what happened, pretty much. I mean, it had a nice story to it. So I did want something that was rooted in something that I could look at and be like, that was a nice moment. Like, that's quite humbling, or, something to draw back on that's more important than work almost. But why did we decide to rebrand? Well, I think partly just practicality of pronunciation, spelling, word of mouth, obviously being really important for agencies. And didn't want it to be just Harry forever being the referrer. If obviously trying to build a business, it needs to be beyond just me as a person. But it was also, and really the reason for the rebranding was actually more that values piece, and trying to make out, or trying to work out what made us tick as a business, and what that culture was, and how it all kind of fitted together. Yes, there's a new name, there'll be a new aesthetic and a brand identity which will go alongside that. But what I think we've really come out of the process, and actually worked with a professional, Sue from Touchpoint Design, who I'd highly recommend for kind of strategic brand guidance, is a much better idea of who we are, and how we help people, and what we're all about, which is just really helping to propel entrepreneurs, and get them to where they need to be, through better design and better technology.
That's cool. I like that. I like both the stories there. There's a bit of a story behind both of them, really. So no, that's good. And like I said, Chad's point is, I love asking a question, because some of the answers we get are fascinating, where people get their names from. Because, and outside, when I was looking at a company, and you go, wow, that's actually quite cool, but where do you get that inspiration from? So that makes sense. And then I suppose just a couple of final, just quick fire questions from me, just to get your brain in gear and get you thinking. So, off the cuff, your absolute best piece of advice to somebody about to set up on their own?
Oh, you can't allow me that. That's horrendous.
Off the cuff.
The best piece of advice. I would say, just be resilient. I think that's the most. There are going to be some really hard days, but just trust the process, enjoy it, and as long as you're enjoying it, you'll get through those tough days. So just stick with it. That's the advice.
That's echoed by a lot of people, so that makes sense. Best book you read recently?
I haven't been reading much in lockdown, which is bad. But what have I really enjoyed recently? I've been rereading actually Sprint, which is the Google Ventures book, just because for me it's just a bible of how to do really good product design. I'm a massive fan of kind of like lean approaches, and doing things, getting like tangible outcomes being more important than sort of sitting around discussing things. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that as a book, and I have been diving back into that recently as we've been doing some more sprints in the studio, which has been great.
We'll post the link so people can see that on Amazon or what have you. Would you have done anything differently?
Would I have done anything
so far on your journey? Have you looked back and gone, oh, you know what? If I had a second chance just to start again, I would have done this slightly different.
No, the mistakes are what makes the learning process what it is. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are small things that I would have changed. Maybe we would have hired earlier. I sort of put that off for quite a while because I was a bit nervous about whether I could sustain someone else's salary. I was very nervous about the impact that would have on someone else's life, let alone mine. So maybe I would have done that, but certainly no regrets. Really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, no, nothing massively different.
Yeah, that's good. And I think, yeah, I mean, that's one of the hardest things, isn't it? Is hiring people, because you kind of go, where do you go and get your investment from? How do you do it? Do you go and raise investment, or do you try and sort of grow organically? And it's a really tough decision to make, I suppose. And I guess the final part for me, and then we'll be bang on nearly 40 minutes, which is impressive for Chad and I, because normally we chat for England. So I suppose, what next? 2021 hopefully will come at the back of this wonderful year, maybe by the end of Q1, maybe into Q2. But I suppose, by the sounds of it, you've done really well through this, and like, as we've seen, tech businesses, there are a number out there that are still thriving and have had fantastic 2020s. But I guess what's that kind of big, hairy, audacious goal for you guys moving forward?
Yeah, I suppose it's to continue growing the team. Probably not for 2021, but the long-term objective is really to get to about 10 people. I think that's where we can do some really incredible work, but without losing the family feel and the culture that we value so importantly as well. So it will be continuing to press on and try and reach that target within sort of 3 years. So that means a few more hires in 2021, and also expanding our client base. So taking on some new challenges and taking on a few things that maybe we haven't done before. And again, our opportunity to expand our skill set and experiences. That will be, as much as I think 2021 will also be about consolidation as well. We've done a lot of growth this year. So it will be about making sure that that's well embedded before we push on too quickly as well, because we're not under any pressure to grow really fast because we're self-funded, which is obviously an amazing opportunity to have as well.
Brilliant. I think that is us. So on behalf of Carl and myself, Harry, real pleasure to have you on today. It's been very useful. And I think the reason we do this is really for people to watch, and there will be other people that want to go on this journey. And I think a lot of the running theme for me is very much, don't fear the unknown. If you've got the self-belief, then just go and do it, and that's what we see over and over again from people like yourself. So listen, it's been a real pleasure having you as a company today, and we look forward to the unraveling of the so when is the rebrand? When is it actually happening?
Early next year. I'm not going to put a date on it because I'll inevitably change, but certainly with an internal project, it's very hard when you're obviously we don't miss client deadlines, but that does have an impact on our internal schedule. So early next year, which will be really exciting.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks very much, Harry.
Thank you very much.